Rain was falling. Through it, a beautiful young woman with a sword could be seen, trying to take someone down. Several people rushed up behind her, asking if she was all right. She told them she was completely fine and warned that if they heard anyone speak against her or her student, they should send that person straight to hell without mercy. The others immediately agreed, saying they understood. The narration explained that this girl was extremely dangerous. A young man called out to her, addressing her as Brother Chuyan, asking what she was staring at and telling her to hurry and help him. This young man was Chuyan, and his importance would become clear later. He agreed to help. The moment his voice reached her, the female lead glanced at him for some reason she couldn't explain. Night fell, and she rested beneath a tree, murmuring to herself in a language no one understood. She found herself thinking of Chuyan. The author had written that this girl would fall in love with Chuyan, her own student. As she thought of him, she suddenly realized something was wrong. A strange glitch flickered before her eyes. The moment it appeared, she understood. The feelings she had for Chuyan weren't actually her own. The realization hit her fully. She felt like she was simply the main character placed inside someone else's book. This world wasn't even real. A person named Guji had written this character, had written that she was the protagonist, and had also written that she would fall hopelessly in love with her own student. After writing all of this, the author had apparently realized that none of these thoughts were truly hers. They were someone else's thoughts, the thoughts of the writer who had created her. Realizing this, she grew furious, demanding to know why that person had written that she would fall for Chuyan. She insisted this wasn't her real feeling at all. Burning with anger, she declared she wouldn't let that person go. Introducing herself, her name was Vaji. She added that it didn't matter who he was. He would die. The scene shifted to reality. Coffee was being poured, and a young woman remarked that the man was a writer. They were on a blind date, and she explained that her aunt had told her he was a writer, so she wanted to know what stories he'd written. He explained that his mother had arranged many blind dates for him and that he used to make some effort for each one, but eventually grew too bored to bother. For this date, he admitted, he hadn't prepared anything at all. The girl thought to herself that she hadn't expected all writers to look this unkempt. Her impression of him had clearly soured. She asked if he was even listening to her. He coughed and then launched into a long boast. He claimed to have written many stories, that there was no better writer in the world, that he'd written enormous, sweeping stories spanning every social class. He kept rambling on. Listening to all of it, the girl became genuinely exasperated. He added that he drew inspiration from looking at his goddess. She asked if he could speak in normal human language. He replied that he was currently trying to write a fantasy novel. Hearing this, she concluded he was clearly some kind of online writer and asked how much he made a month and whether he could even cover her cab fare. He insisted he had no shortage of talent and made a great deal of profit, though in truth it wasn't much. She told him to stop. He admitted that this month he'd only earned about 10,000 yuan, then added that this was still more than she made. She laughed and said that meant he was unemployed. He protested, stunned. She thought to herself that everything about him seemed fine otherwise, but she could never start a relationship with someone unemployed. She stood and said she had something to take care of and stepped away. He told her to go ahead. He sat there wondering to himself what kind of games girls even like these days. He admitted he didn't understand any of it and reflected that if it weren't for his argument with his mother, he wouldn't have come at all, though embarrassingly he had to admit the girl was quite pretty and he did feel drawn to her, even if there was nothing he could do about it. His phone rang and he answered quickly. Comments were coming in on his story. Seeing the comments, he felt inspired and decided to keep writing, saying he wouldn't rest at all. He needed to write the next chapter. He paid for the meal, the girl had eaten for free, and left. The scene shifted. Night had fallen, and he arrived at his house, noticing the darkness since he hadn't turned on the lights. Once in his room, he knocked on his roommate's door. His roommate Yang answered, another writer like himself. The first man asked if Yang had eaten. Yang confirmed he had. The first man asked how his blind date went. Yang replied it went like all the others. The first man asked what the reason was this time. Yang said it was probably because he didn't have money in his account or enough in his bank balance. The first man acknowledged that he knew, but told him not to worry and to keep working hard. He then gave Yang a motivational speech, telling him not to panic and to start slowly, that once he progressed far enough, he wouldn't need to look back. Hearing this, Yang felt motivated and said he understood. He declared he would change the world and be called a young model. The first man told him to continue and that he was going to his room. In his room, the first man thought about how he didn't know if his ability would be good anymore, since he felt like he'd forgotten how to talk to people. It had been a long time since his blind date, and he'd finally started talking again. He wondered what to talk about now, but admitted that today had been fun. He thought about whether this was what a normal conversation was like, and marveled at how cool that girl had seemed. He found himself comparing her to his main character and thought his character was better. He had created a main character named Vaji, who seemed quite good and surprisingly similar to that girl in terms of attitude. He described her as the strongest cultivator in the world and praised her. He thought to himself that if he made another character exactly the same, he wouldn't be able to distinguish between the main character and the side characters. He mentioned something about Jojo and another character, but said he'd forgotten the name. He was simply thinking about what story to write next. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable cold from behind him, as if it was coming from his back despite the window being in front of him. Before he could understand it, a sword appeared right in front of his face. He realized someone had thrown it at him, and he was shocked. A moment later, a girl appeared right in front of him. He was confused and asked who she was, but she told him that if he wrote any more, she would kill him, no matter what happened to the world or the sky. He was stunned and shocked that a girl could be here. He asked who she was. She said her name was Vaji, the name of the main character from his book. He was confused, wondering if this was a coincidence or if he was dreaming from working too late. He questioned whether he was having delusions because he stayed up all night, but then he realized the door was closed. How did this girl get inside without him hearing anything? He wondered if she was a thief. She asked what kind of thief she was, suggesting she wanted to steal his book story. He couldn't figure it out. He thought logically about whether she might be a hacker trying to steal his computer files. But she was so beautiful that he couldn't imagine why she would need to steal anything. He marveled at her appearance, saying he'd never seen anyone this beautiful in real life, and that she exceeded his character design. He wondered if he'd somehow become a magician, but that was impossible. How could a fictional character come to life? He tried to touch the sword cautiously and asked if she could please move it so he could talk. She replied that she wouldn't even need a sword to kill him. She was Vaji. He was shocked, thinking that if she was really Vaji, she could kill him without the sword. He was terrified, thinking she wanted to kill him, but couldn't quite believe it. He couldn't understand what she wanted as she circled around him. She suddenly told him to stand up. He obeyed, and she kicked him hard, sending him flying to the ground. She then went to his computer and sat down, trying to write her own story. But she didn't know how to use the computer or the keyboard. She was trying to use her energy to write. When she did, electricity shocked the computer, and she got shocked as well. He exclaimed in horror, asking what she was doing to his laptop. He realized she was trying to use her spiritual energy on the computer. He understood that she didn't know anything about the real world and was very naive. She asked how to use magical weapons and how to control her energy, how to stop the electricity in her hands, and how to write text on the screen. She had many questions. He told her to wait and asked what she wanted to write. She said she wanted him to quickly write that she had achieved everything, broken through and progressed. He refused, saying that if he wrote that, the foundation of the world would collapse. It wouldn't be logical. She told him to stop talking and just write what she said. She tried to force him to write by pointing her sword at him. He resisted, trying to push the sword aside and cool down, saying that since she was the main character, she needed to work hard without shortcuts. Hearing this, she was frightened and agreed, starting to type. As soon as he typed, something happened to the main character. She seemed to float in the air, and text appeared beside her. She was shocked, saying nothing happened to her. He told her he had warned her that if she tried to force such things, the foundation of the world would collapse. She replied that she hadn't expected the creator to have no power and be just a scholar. She mentioned that their world was just a book and that their happiness and sorrow were controlled by one person. She said that her emotions would change suddenly just because of his pen. He admitted that she was right. It felt like he was controlling her destiny. He regretted writing that his main character was so intelligent. She asked if he was having second thoughts about her. He said that since she acknowledged that everything was in his hands, he had complete power and could change things. She replied that that wasn't necessarily true. He explained that an author has full control, but at this moment, she was trying to do what she wanted. He assured her that her existence was very important. She needed to be the strongest. She asked if that meant she needed to fall in love with someone. As soon as she said this, he became frightened, thinking he'd dug his own grave. He worried because she was very powerful in the book, but what could he do? She stared at him, and he thought about what to do. She said that she wanted to do what she wanted, not what was written. She told him that as an author, he had influence and power, so he needed to correct the story. She was serious about this. He agreed, saying he would try to change things in the next round. She continued to stare at him. He felt like his mind would explode. She said she was telling him that she had no relationship with Chuyin. She warned him that if he wrote that story again, she would make sure he could never write again and wouldn't even deserve to be called a writer. After saying this, she disappeared suddenly. He was in shock, wondering if she had been telling the truth. He thought about how she wasn't gentle or kind at all, the opposite of how he had written her character. He was confused about how this could be happening. He thought about how he had written her character, but she was completely different. He realized that if she wanted to kill him, she could have done it easily, but she didn't because he was the creator. If she killed him, her world would end. He felt relieved that he was safe. He thanked himself for thinking of this logic, but he admitted he'd never considered this before. He was confused about what to do next. He thought about how his heroine had not only left his room but had told him to change the entire story. He wasn't scared of her. He believed she would be the strongest, but he was also a writer. He got angry and typed something dangerous, then pressed enter. The scene shifted, showing the fantasy world inside the book. Mountains were visible, and in the middle of them was his main character, Vaji, who was cultivating. She opened her eyes and thought about how that man was still writing the story. She was just a character in his book. She thought about how the whole world was just a book, and how that person could do whatever he wanted. She thought about whether this was all true or not. She accepted the reality and wondered if she should trust this creator god who could kill her, but might also help her. She thought about whether she should capture him or do something else. She didn't know, but she had made a breakthrough and entered a new realm. She thought about her next goal, exploring other lands and taking them over. Morning came, and the writer checked the reader comments on his story. He noticed people discussing the story and making bets about what would happen. He saw comments saying they hadn't expected the main character to fall in love so soon, and he was confused about how they knew this. Another commenter explained that the author had written something similar in a previous book. The writer realized that readers were betting on what would happen next. He thought about the importance of keeping suspense in the story so that the audience would be surprised. He was happy thinking about this and told himself that even if his book flopped, he'd only lose money. He hadn't had a flopped book before. The important thing was that he had survived. He had gained 400 new subscribers. He went to his friend's room, expecting him to be writing as usual. His friend opened the door before he could knock. He saw that his friend Yang had packed his belongings. He asked if Yang was going somewhere. The scene shifted to a street stall where these two friends often hung out. The moment was serious because Yang was leaving home. Yang explained that his new book had been reported. He said his work was being used by many people, and they were getting more information from it. An editor had told him that he'd kept it in draft form, but it still got reported. He wondered what would happen when it was published. The first man tried to reassure him, saying his loyalty was strong and there was still a chance. But Yang knew better. He said they hadn't even launched it yet, but this was already happening. He wondered how people would read it. He expressed all his concerns to his friend. Yang said this situation had never happened to him before, and he didn't know what to do. But he admitted that he loved writing books. He wanted to show the world his heartfelt stories. That's why he wrote books. He had struggled so hard. He had worked 10 hours a day writing books and still nothing had come of it. His health had suffered, but he continued. He explained all of this to his friend, who listened silently. The first man admitted that Yang worked harder than he did, having seen him writing while delivering food. Yang said that this time he wouldn't succeed, and his parents were waiting for him to succeed and lift them out of poverty. But now he understood he needed to face reality and live a normal life. The writing world wasn't for him anymore. He said his pen might not even belong in this world. He was leaving. The first man understood but told him that even though he was poor and struggling, he had gained a good friend. If Yang ever needed help, he should ask. Yang agreed, saying they lived in the same city and could still see each other. He wished that the first man's new book would be a hit. He said goodbye and left on his bicycle with his packed belongings. The first man felt discouraged thinking about Yang's situation. He reflected that his own situation was similar. He had dreams but couldn't fulfill them. His first book hadn't made much progress, and he could only do slightly better. But he had no control over his family since they didn't pressure him much. He was lost in these thoughts when he noticed a girl running past him. She bumped into him slightly. He wondered where she came from and why she was running so fast without making a sound. He noticed she was a gaming streamer, an introvert who was running away. He realized she lived in the house next to his. Zhang had mentioned she was a gaming streamer. He thought she must be struggling with her streaming, which is why she was going out to drink. He thought Zhang might like her. The scene shifted again. He arrived home thinking the place was boring with no one to talk to. But suddenly a sword appeared, and he realized his main character, Vaji, had returned. He was shocked and asked what the last sentence he wrote meant. Was he begging for death? He laughed and thanked her. Hearing this, Vaji was shocked that he was thanking her. He expressed relief that she was there so he could talk to someone. She was confused, asking if he was drunk or high, saying he was crazy. He asked her to move the sword aside so they could talk. She suddenly realized she'd forgotten what the last sentence was. He suggested that since she acknowledged he was the author, with all the power, she should just ask him to write what she wanted. She was furious, saying she wouldn't fall in love with Chuyin just because he wrote it. She demanded he change the story. He tried to reason with her, saying she could fall in love with someone else if she didn't want Chuyin. She replied that she wouldn't fall in love with anyone, asking why he thought she needed to. She refused to think about it. She stared at him intensely, telling him to change the story. He became frightened and tried to explain, but she demanded he say something. He admitted he couldn't change the story now. She was shocked at his refusal. He showed her his phone, explaining that the script was already public, so he couldn't make changes now that people had commented. When she realized this, she told him he would die. No one could save him now. He panicked, begging her to wait, saying he could change things, asking her to stop. He tried to convince her and asked why she was here. She was confused by his question. He explained that this could be dangerous for her and asked her to think about the reason. He suggested it was important that she had a divine mind and that her body and soul were completely separate from her physical form. She questioned whether her body existed or if she was just a soul. He was trying to trick her by making her doubt her existence. She checked her cultivation experience and realized her body did exist. She asked what would happen next. He explained that he could make changes for her and that by taking risks, she could avoid danger. She agreed to ask if he would help her. He said yes, admitting that based on her appearance and other factors, thinking too hard would tire her mind. He pointed out that if he couldn't control himself in this world and someone else controlled him, how would he feel? If he knew he was a character in a book, he would feel terrible. She should know that she was dependent on someone else, and he could help her. He successfully traps her in his narrative logic. Hearing this, she asks suspiciously if our smooth-talking scribe is genuinely going to help her. Our guy nods aggressively with the confidence of a man who just realized he has no plan whatsoever, asserting that yes, absolutely, and explaining that given her magnificent appearance and all her traits, he is sure overthinking these cosmic anomalies will completely drain her mind. He notes that if a character inside a book realizes they are being controlled by an external force and cannot even control their own thoughts, it must feel incredibly tragic, adding that just thinking about it makes him feel deeply sympathetic toward her. He points out that she clearly knows she is currently dependent on his all-powerful pen of destiny, so he will help her. Hearing his speech, the girl stares at him, completely falling for his trap, and finally agrees. Our guy concludes that she has tried her way, but it clearly didn't work. So she should let him handle this with proper narrative logic. He tells her to listen, explaining that before the chapters are officially published online, he will keep the raw text saved as a draft so they can test the cosmic effects first, and adding that he is going to write a specific script sequence right now to see what happens. He types out the text but keeps it strictly as an unpublished draft. The moment his fingers hit the keys, a strange cosmic energy begins to shift around them. Whatever is happening, even the observers don't fully comprehend. Meanwhile, the girl experiences a sudden sensation and thinks to herself that the man is physically weak, and yet his words hold a strange, absolute influence over her reality. She wonders what she should do with this human once she acquires full power, considering holding him captive as her personal scribe and continuously increasing her own spiritual strength, but questioning if that is the right path. Just then, our guy breaks her thoughts, telling her to listen and explaining that he is going to write a narrative sequence that will allow her to experience a profound cycle of life and death, noting it will be an incredible experience for her character arc while explaining a bunch of plot points. The girl cuts him off sharply, telling him that he thinks he knows her perfectly just because his hands wrote her existence, but warning him and asking what he thinks will happen if she delivers a heavy blow to his face if he utters another word. Our poor guy instantly panics, stammering to ask why on earth she would hit him since he is actively helping her resolve her plot crisis. He points out that the female lead he designed was incredibly elegant, beautiful, and magnificent, and questions if it isn't an absolute surprise that a regular human managed to construct her entire universe. He urges her to think about it rationally because according to her world's parameters, he is essentially a supreme god, and reassures her that once her character arc is successfully completed, she will be able to completely break free from the book boundaries. Hearing his elaborate explanation, the girl contemplates if such an outcome could truly be possible, admitting that this man is indeed the one who constructed her entire reality and concluding that she accepts these terms. Seeing her back down, our guy smiles and notes that it is not a major issue, but they should at least introduce themselves properly. He reminds her that this is the second time she has broken into his house, stating that his name is Chu Jae as he introduces himself and extends his hand for a formal handshake. The moment his hand moves forward, she flies into a rage, snapping at the mortal to get his hands away from her and demanding to know if he is trying to touch her. She proclaims that she is the great Wu Ji and does not allow just anyone to touch her, ordering him to back off. Our guy sighs internally with the weariness of a tired novelist, thinking that in the next plot update, he is definitely going to code some basic social etiquette into this feisty maiden settings. He reflects on what a difficult girl she is since she doesn't even know how to accept a basic greeting, which he finds unbelievable. Outwardly, he clears his throat, telling her that he is not entirely sure about her cultivation dietary laws, but asking if she wants to grab something to eat. He inquires if her soul can consume real-world food because he is absolutely starving, and invites her to let him show her around the real world. The scene shifts to a bustling outdoor marketplace where our poor immortal is about to have a culture shock special. The girl looks around, completely mesmerized and stunned by the modern environment. Just then, they pass by a local woman talking loudly on her phone to her boss, explaining that she is completely stuck in a massive traffic jam and promising to be there as soon as possible. Hearing this, Wuji is thoroughly bewildered about what on earth those people are talking about. She observes people clicking photos, while others are engaging in modern activities. Suddenly, her eyes lock on to a casual smoker lighting up, and she gasps in awe, genuinely wondering if this ordinary mortal is secretly a powerful fire cultivator. She genuinely believes the man is a powerful fire cultivator, manipulating raw flames. She analyzes the pedestrians in bewilderment, thinking that these clueless mortals possess absolutely zero spiritual aura whatsoever. She reflects that a phenomenon where mortals walk around with zero aura usually only happens when an entire civilization achieves immortality, wondering if that means everyone in this world is an immortal deity. Just then, two regular guys walk past, casually chatting and apologizing to each other after a minor bump. She watches them, completely mind-blown by how real that world is. Our guy walks beside her and chuckles, telling her that in this world, everything is exactly as she sees it, and suggesting that they walk and talk while checking things out. He adds with a grin that she should come on so he can treat her to a taste of literal heaven. The scene shifts to a local noodle shop where steaming bowls of noodles are served. Our guy digs in and asks if she wants to try some. When asked, the girl nods slightly, indicating her curiosity. Seeing her response, our guy calls out to the shopkeeper to bring them another bowl of noodles, and the vendor shouts back that it is coming right up. Within moments, a fresh bowl of noodles is placed directly on their table. The girl observes the dish, takes a bite, and her eyes instantly light up as she wonders how something this incredibly delicious can exist there. She devours them happily, reflecting that it is amazing and that she hasn't consumed anything that wonderful in ages. She remarks to our guy that his world is fascinating, noting that they humans consume food to sustain their physical lives, and declaring his world to be truly a treasure trove, rambling on with her cultivation perspective. She adds that in her current state, she is only at the chi cultivation stage, so she can only channel a microscopic fraction of her true energy. Our guy watches our elegant, mystical maiden slurping her noodles and thinks to himself that she literally looks like a stray kitty devouring forbidden treats. And honestly, the comparison is terrifyingly accurate. Meanwhile, a man sitting at a nearby table is staring at her intensely, completely captivated by her stunning beauty, and wondering why on earth she is wearing traditional cosplay robes in the middle of a scorching summer heatwave. Noticing his gaze, the girl fumes and whispers to our guy, asking if he didn't claim that no one would notice her there, and demanding to know why on earth that man is staring at her so intensely. When questioned, our guy explains casually that because it is the peak of summer right then, and she is wearing highly theatrical, heavy robes, people are literally just wondering if she isn't feeling hot in that. Hearing his explanation, she pouts instantly. Our guy quickly covers for her, calling out to the staring onlooker with a straight face to not mind them, explaining that they are actually travelers from another dimension, or basically aliens. Hearing this absurd excuse, the onlooker just gives them a thumbs up and quietly walks away. The girl blinks in pure confusion, noting that she sees that's how Earthlings roll, remarking that her mystical realm is vastly different from this chaotic human circus, explaining that in his world they can eat wherever they please, but in hers they don't have that lifestyle since food culture simply doesn't exist there. Our guy listens to her, replying warmly that he understands but that her world has its own unique grandeur since it is an ancient, mystical era. He advises her she shouldn't look down on it and reassures her that she isn't fake, but is real, and her world is completely real too. Hearing his cheesy, comforting words, the girl looks away, murmuring to this smooth talker to stop trying to butter her up and questioning why he isn't using his absolute power to bind and imprison her within his text. Our guy replies softly that it is because he is simply not that kind of person as he stands up to leave. And the moment he utters those words, the girl is struck by a deep, silent realization. The scene shifts as they head back toward the apartment building. Wuji walks silently beside him, reflecting that in this weird alien universe, this weirdly useful mortal is the only soul she knows. Noting he is her sole anchor there, she doesn't know about anything else. And she doesn't even know if she can successfully survive in that realm where concepts of wealth and poverty are so stark. She concludes that to truly comprehend this world, she must follow him closely for now and cooperate with him. Her mind constantly drifts back to his words about being simply not that kind of person. Lost in thought, they finally arrive back at the apartment. Our guy locks the door behind them and immediately heads to his desk to work. Seeing him type, she approaches and asks what exactly he is doing now. Our guy replies that he is writing the next arc of the story because he knows exactly what needs to be done, reminding her that she asked him to outline the future plot. Our guy launches enthusiastically into his grand storyline. But the moment plot point arrives, our furious maiden's eyes widen in absolute murderous horror. Our guy explains cheerfully, because apparently he has a death wish, that after this arc, our heroine will face off against a massive, venomous entity known as the Lord Snake, and that during the climax of the fight, she will accidentally fall straight into his venomous pool, causing her body to be heavily poisoned. Hearing this catastrophically terrible plot twist, our outraged maiden violently grabs his poor manuscript and shreds it into confetti, screaming that this is absolute garbage, calling it completely unacceptable, and demanding to know how on earth he can let a disgusting snake poison her body. Our guy tries desperately to reason with the rage beast before him, telling her to wait and explaining with the desperation of a condemned man that at that exact same time, her disciple Shudian will be right outside the cavern, and by pure accident, he will discover the hidden fruit that serves as the perfect antidote to the snake's venom, explaining that Chudian will obtain the antidote to save her life. Hearing this absolute nonsense, our temperamental goddess fumes, calling him a literary hack, proclaiming his storytelling to be completely garbage, and demanding to know why he is writing this cliché nonsense as she starts screaming at him in creative frustration. Our guy treats it defensively, asserting that this isn't a garbage plot, but a solid dramatic sequence. But the girl aggressively grabs the doomed novelist by his collar and barks like an angry noble, demanding to know what kind of trashy writing this is and ordering him to explain himself. Our guy gasps for air like a drowning man, asking what else he's supposed to write since this prickly maiden hasn't exactly given him many options, pointing out that Chudian is a fantastic character who is supposed to be the heroic lead of this entire story as he argues his case. The girl commands, like the authoritative divine being she is, that he must scrap this ridiculous snake venom nonsense immediately. Our guy counters, asking why he should drop it when she has already heard the entire sequence now, meaning she literally knows exactly what is going to happen, and suggesting that she can use this future knowledge to ensure the snake never manages to poison her in the first place, noting that if she remembers this plot point, he won't be able to trick her. Hearing this surprisingly decent logic, the girl stops her tantrum and ponders that, okay, maybe this makes sense, since because she now knows the future events of her world, she can actively alter the outcome before it even happens, ensuring that way that even the creator won't be able to force the plot on her. Our guy clicks his tongue and offers an alternative, suggesting he can just write that she finds the antidote herself at the very bottom of the pool, ensuring she never has to interact with her disciple for help. Hearing this, she narrows her eyes, remarking that it really feels like he is just desperately trying to avoid changing her overall story and accusing him of not being genuinely willing to help her at all. Our guy defends himself, telling her that it is her life and she should hold absolute control over it, asserting that he is merely giving his absolute best to assist her through her narrative crisis and suggesting they just see how things unfold. Wondering if perhaps this is simply destiny as he finishes his speech and gets back to typing. The clock rapidly ticks forward, passing 11 p.m., and eventually by 9 a.m. the next morning, our guy finally finishes the grueling writing session. He successfully completes the entire manuscript draft. Guding, his head is spinning completely. He looks up and notices the girl standing by the window, staring deeply at the morning sky. Our guy approaches her and asks what she is doing over there, wondering why she doesn't try to interact with things herself. The moment he asks, the girl looks back and murmurs that she does not know how she can interact with anything when she knows absolutely nothing about this world, explaining that before she touches anything, she needs to fully comprehend it first, worrying that she might accidentally break his objects, and bluntly pointing out that besides, he isn't even rich. Her blunt words pierce through him like a literal arrow. Our guy winces, noting that hurt, and telling her that to truly comprehend this world, she has two great options, explaining she can either read comprehensive history books or watch real-world dramas to understand human behavior. Hearing this, she ponders that books make complete sense to her, but wonders why on earth she would ever need to watch a drama. Our guy smiles, telling her to come on and let him show her, inviting her to check it out. He grabs the TV remote and presses a button. Instantly, a highly intense romantic kissing scene flashes onto the screen. Witnessing the explicit romance, our guy is completely flustered and frozen, while Wuji glares at the screen in absolute shock, demanding to know if this is what he wanted to show her. Our guy panics, insisting that no, he accidentally pressed the wrong button and telling her to hold on. He rapidly switches the channel, landing on an intense action movie where soldiers are screaming to fire. Hearing the sounds of warfare, the girl instantly channels her spiritual energy, getting ready to launch a destructive counterattack at the TV. Our guy screams for her to hold on and stop, explaining that they are just acting and nothing is actually happening since it's not a real war, lamenting that traveling outside with her is going to be a massive headache, and pleading with her to promise him that she won't go outside unsupervised as he explains the situation to her. The girl huffs, declaring that she is absolutely not watching this television machine anymore, and ordering him to just get her the history books because that will be far better. Seeing her preference, our guy quickly pulls out his phone and places an online order for the books. Observing his actions, the girl asks curiously if those books are far away and wonders if they are going to fly there on a spiritual flying sword, having no concept of modern delivery systems. Our guy scratches his neck, telling her that this world functions very differently and noting she will see. As he explains it to her, she suddenly steps incredibly close to his face, demanding to know how much time it will take to arrive. Being in such extreme physical proximity to her gorgeous face, our guy blushes furiously and stammers that it will take a little bit of time. Hearing his answer, she nods, deciding that is fine then, and she shall wait, announcing she will go stay in that empty room and wait there because she does not want to disturb his work. After uttering these words, she turns away, blushing fiercely for some mysterious reason. Our guy reflects that she is right, but notes this is the first time in his entire life he is actually sharing an apartment with a girl. Just then, she looks back and questions what kind of expression that is on his face, ordering him to explain it to her because she doesn't get it at all, and adding that anyway, they are officially living together now, albeit in separate rooms. Our guy walks over to check the empty room and scratches his head, noting that there isn't even a bed in that room. Hearing his concern, she dismisses it, stating it doesn't matter at all. The scene shifts to the deep night. We are shown the girl sitting cross-legged in the empty room, completely focused on her spiritual cultivation. Meanwhile, our guy is tossing and turning in his bed, unable to sleep, keeping his thoughts on the gorgeous girl living right across the hall and berating himself that such a beautiful lady is staying under his roof while she is all the way in the other room, and he is just a certified lonely guy. Simultaneously, the girl is cultivating, but her mind is also drifting, reflecting that this is the first time in her existence she is sharing a living space with a real human. Truly, both of them are reflecting on the exact same existential thought, with our guy thinking that he is literally living with the heroine of his own book, while the girl thinks that she is currently living under the same roof as her creator god. Morning eventually arrives. Our guy wakes up, goes to the bathroom, and starts freshening up, completing his morning routine and feeling completely re-energized. After 2 days of being completely offline and grinding nonstop to finalize his work, he rejoices that he was offline for a straight 48 hours to clear that manuscript and notes it is now officially done, calling it absolute bliss and wondering how Wuji will feel about the update. Our guy feels incredibly fresh after achieving his massive writing milestone, but the moment he steps out, he freezes. The girl is standing right there, staring at him intensely, and our guy hadn't even noticed her approach. He gasps, questioning what she is doing there, and asking why she didn't make a single sound. Wuji ignores his panic and commands him to move to the side a bit. Our guy stammers that there is just a towel and a toothbrush here and nothing else. Hearing this, she asks curiously what exactly a toothbrush is. Based on her urgent expressions, it's highly obvious she urgently needs to use the restroom. Our guy explains that she puts it in her mouth like that to clean her teeth, guessing she has never seen her use one before. Hearing his explanation, she flies into a pure misunderstanding rage, screaming that he just had that object inside his mouth, and now he wants to put it inside hers. She furiously grabs him by his collar, hoists him up, and throws him completely out of the bathroom, barking at him to get out of there right now. After slamming the door, she rushes inside. Our poor guy crashes onto the floor outside, groaning that he was just explaining how the object functions, clarifying he was obviously going to buy a brand new one for her, and asking why she threw him. In reality, the poor girl desperately needed to relieve herself because of the heavy real-world food she consumed the previous night, but our guy completely misread the situation. Once his brain fully registers what just happened, he slaps his forehead, realizing he totally forgot she ate a massive bowl of noodles the night before, calling himself an absolute idiot, noting that to digest real food, a human body obviously needs to use the restroom, and worrying about what will happen if she gets completely fed up and leaves him. Shaking off his panic, our guy realizes he needs to grab some essential supplies for her, so he quickly heads out to the market. A while later, the girl steps out of the bathroom and notices that the apartment is completely silent. Her creator is nowhere to be found. She panics internally, wondering if he got genuinely angry at her and guessing perhaps she crossed the line. Her face flushes with absolute embarrassment and guilt. She quietly walks over to the living room and sits on the sofa, murmuring dejectedly that he isn't there, wondering where on earth he went, and worrying that he must be deeply upset with her. The scene shifts to a short while later. Our guy arrives back at the apartment carrying several shopping bags. He steps into the living room and locks eyes with the girl, who is staring at him with an incredibly innocent, quiet expression. Before she can even apologize, our guy holds up the bags and smiles, telling her to look because he brought some supplies and breakfast for her, and adding that yes, he thinks they really need to sit down and have a proper, mature conversation. He sets the food on the table, pulls out a fresh bun, and begins eating. He addresses her seriously, telling her to look because he has officially written out the entire plotline, and warning her that she cannot just go around bullying and throwing people, reminding her that he is a good guy. He continues that they need to establish some ground rules, noting he knows she believes her entire destiny is written by his hand, and explaining that because of that responsibility, he accepts that he must treat her character with absolute care. However, he adds that she also needs to take structural responsibility, warning her that she cannot just physically assault him whenever she pleases, reassuring her that he doesn't want her to feel trapped by his pen, and explaining that he doesn't expect her to respect him blindly just because he is her creator, but emphasizing that they must maintain mutual respect for each other. Our guy was genuinely upset because she kept physically launching him around whenever she lost her temper. Hearing his heartfelt speech, the girl looks down guiltily and softly mutters that she is sorry and will find a way to repay him for everything. Our guy replies that if she wants to stay in this realm, she must thoroughly observe, comprehend, and adapt to the laws of this world. He lays down several essential conditions for her. She asks for an example, and our guy explains that, for example, she must respect the modern societal laws, and she desperately needs a proper change of clothes, among other things, concluding she has to start living like a modern human. Following his advice, the girl logs onto an online shopping platform to check out modern fashion. But the moment her eyes scan the prices and the explicit styles of modern clothing, she is completely scandalized. She gasps in absolute horror at those kinds of outfits, asking if he is seriously telling her that women wear those skimpy clothes in this world. She fails to comprehend modern fashion, thinking it is completely absurd, but reasons that perhaps this world functions on completely different parameters than hers, so this must be considered normal there. She turns to our guy and commands him to go bring her those clothes, adding that as for the financial cost, she will fully repay him later with interest, telling him to consider it a formal loan. Our guy raises an eyebrow, agreeing that is fine, but asking how exactly she is planning to repay him wanting to know her plan. Before she can respond, our guy cuts in, explaining that she cannot just cross back over to her universe, grab mystical treasures, and bring them there to sell because her physical body isn't even here, since this manifestation is purely her spiritual soul, telling her she needs to understand that. Hearing his point, she pouts in frustration. Our guy continues that furthermore, her sword and her current robes are literally just a spiritual illusion constructed by her aura, warning it would be entirely unlawful for this world if she brought fictional artifacts to sell there. He adds that she also cannot just go outside and perform supernatural stunts or shows to make quick cash because he knows her character perfectly since he is the one who wrote her, noting she possesses immense absolute pride as the strongest cultivator, so she would never resort to doing cheap street performances. As our guy breaks down her personality, the girl grows increasingly annoyed, wondering how on earth this human knows her psychological traits so perfectly and finding it infuriating. Our guy offers a real solution, suggesting that in fact, she can actually write web novels online so that way she can earn her own independent income. But explaining that to do that, she will have to use his bank account so that the earnings can be processed legally, calling it a viable path. However, he explains that to register for anything official, she strictly needs a legal identification card. The girl blinks, wondering if an identification card is like a life tablet or a sec token. Our guy nods, confirming that exactly. Just like a status token in her world, it is an absolute necessity, adding that without a card, whether an Aadhaar card or an ID card, she cannot perform a single legal activity in this world, warning that navigating this realm without one will be a total disaster, and noting that obtaining one legally for a manifested character is incredibly difficult. Hearing the obstacle, the girl suggests if they cannot simply purchase a status card with money, or perhaps just take someone else's card. Our guy scoffs, asking if she is telling him that people in her universe can just casually swap status tokens and life tablets like that. The girl looks away, admitting that is true and noting she understands she needs to learn the rules. Our guy points out that the real question is whether she can actually write a compelling story. The girl fires back that that part is fine, but counters that the real question is whether he can actually afford to maintain her living expenses until her book starts generating profit, demanding to know if he possesses enough funds to sustain them. Hearing her blunt financial question, our poor guy goes into absolute shock, contemplating grimly that if his novel career completely tanks, he guesses he will literally have to go work a grueling shift at a factory to feed them. But internally, a sly idea sparks in his mind as he wonders what will happen if he uses his author powers to secretly tweak her character settings, reasoning that if he rewrites her slightly to turn her into a master storyteller, she will be able to pump out absolute masterpiece novels, which he considers a brilliant scheme. Meanwhile, the girl showcases her pride, firmly stating that she has absolutely no need to rely on cheap tricks because she is the great Wu Ji and will easily scale the highest peaks of success in this world, telling him he doesn't need to stress his small mind about it. Our guy smiles, noting that is fine, but adding he can still offer her some solid creative guidance and advice. The girl scoffs that it is sweet of him to offer help, but points out his own career is completely struggling, demanding to know how on earth he is planning to support her or handle their expenses. Our guy responds firmly, telling her to listen because he is not backing down and can easily support one person. He adds that to make this work, she must strictly follow 3 specific rules, explaining that first of all, she does not need to hover around him or follow him everywhere all day, since she needs to focus on her own independent path and take care of herself. Second, she must adapt. And third, she must do something that allows her to break free from the narrative boundaries of her book, asking if she understands. Our guy delivers these deep truths to her, adding that he is telling her the absolute reality of this world and noting that to survive there, she must put in real effort. The girl finally nods in agreement, deciding that is fine and asking why not, but insisting that before anything else, they must go acquire those clothes for her immediately, urging him to go quickly. Our guy sighs, agreeing that it is fine, but reminding her to remember to consider this shopping trip as a strict personal loan. The girl smirks that she has got it loud and clear. With that, they prepare to head out to the commercial market, with the girl feeling thoroughly pleased as she thinks that it is excellent that her creator is cooperating and they are now going to get her modern attire. The scene shifts to a bustling clothing boutique in the city. The market is completely packed with crowds. The moment they step inside the shop, The female sales clerks instantly lock their eyes onto Wuji, gasping in absolute awe at the beautiful lady, wondering where on earth she got that magnificent traditional costume, noting it looks absolutely stunning on her, and praising her as looking like an absolute goddess in that cosplay. Within seconds, all the saleswomen completely surround our heroine, showering her with endless praise. Wuji stands in the center of the crowd, thoroughly overwhelmed and confused, whispering to our guy to ask what kind of clothes she is even supposed to choose there, since she doesn't comprehend any of it. But before he can help, the eager saleswomen start piling dozens of modern outfits into her arms, shouting for her to try this one and try that one. Seeing the mountain of clothes, she is completely bewildered, having no clue what to do, while our guy just quietly sits down on a lounge chair, watching the spectacle. Finally, the girl points at a specific outfit and announces she will try that one, quickly rushing into the dressing room to change. While she is inside, one of the sales clerks approaches our guy with a warm smile, remarking that his girlfriend is absolutely stunning, and noting that honestly, those outfits suit her perfectly since she looks so adorably shy while selecting them. Our guy chokes, questioning the mention of a girlfriend. Just then, another clerk chimes in, confirming that yes, the two of them truly look like a perfect match. Inside the dressing room, Wuji's enhanced senses pick up their conversation, and she ponders in confusion about what exactly a girlfriend signifies and wonders what on earth a perfect match is. She shakes off her thoughts and rapidly changes out of her heavy traditional robes into the modern outfit. The next instant, the dressing room curtain is pulled open. The moment she steps out, the entire boutique falls into absolute dead silence. Every single person in the shop stands completely stunned and frozen, unable to utter a single word. Our guy's heart completely stops beating as he stares at her. She looks so overwhelmingly beautiful that words simply cannot describe it. She steps forward, posing slightly, and asks how she looks. Hearing her voice, everyone breaks into cheers, and our guy stammers that she looks absolutely incredible. The saleswomen squeal that this is breathtaking, declaring she looks more stunning than a literal superstar. Noting her cosplay is amazing, but pointing out that her traditional undergarments seem highly incompatible with modern clothing and suggesting she definitely needs to purchase modern undergarments as well. Asking how about they get her some fresh sets. Hearing this, the girl is thoroughly confused, thinking to herself about the structural purpose of modern undergarments, wondering how it functions, and questioning if normal humans wear those things. One of the clerks approaches her gently and asks her to please tell them what her cup size is so they can prepare the perfect, comfortable fit for her. Hearing this, Wuji is completely baffled, wondering why they are suddenly talking about a cup since they are selling clothes, and asking where a cup came from, having absolutely no concept of modern undergarment measurements. Seeing her complete confusion, our guy adjusts his glasses and calls out confidently to the staff to get her a D cup and make sure it is of the absolute highest quality. Hearing his specific order, the saleswomen look back at him in absolute shock, thinking to themselves that he claims she is just a friend, so they wonder how on earth he knows her exact specific measurements. Meanwhile, the girl looks down at her new modern skirt and murmurs uncomfortably that those modern clothes expose too much of her legs, feeling like everyone will look at her, and noting that she notices people here wear fabric sleeves on their feet, asking if she should purchase those socks as well. Our guy chuckles, telling her that, yeah, sure, she can buy whatever she needs since he is the one footed with the bill anyway. The scene shifts to a short while later outside the commercial boutique. Our duo is walking down the street, and the girl looks thoroughly uncomfortable and awkward in her new modern attire, while our guy is walking beside her, thoroughly mesmerized, thinking that it was worth every single cent and was totally worth it. He keeps stealing glances at her. Noting his constant gaze, Wuji snaps, demanding to know what on earth he is constantly staring at, and pointing out he has never looked at her like this before. Caught red-handed, our guy quickly clears his throat and explains defensively that it is not a weird thing, asking if she didn't see how countless people were staring at her inside the shop and noting, it is simple logic. He adds that the reality is she is naturally capturing everyone's attention because she looks exceptionally beautiful, stating it is as simple as that and explaining people are literally just jealous of her stunning appearance, feeling strangely proud of her. Hearing his words, the girl ponders that she must accept that this is how things function there, but reflects that wearing those garments is incredibly uncomfortable for her. As she copes with the modern outfit, she suddenly recalls the sales clerk's words and asks, by the way, what exactly the definition of a girlfriend is. Our guy freezes, thinking that she heard the saleswomen, and tries to explain it using her world's terminology, asking if she recalls the concept of a Tao companion in her cultivation universe, and noting it is basically like that. Explaining it signifies two individuals who are closer than regular friends living in a formal romantic relationship. Like them, for example. He somehow manages to patch together an explanation, but the girl immediately presses further, asking what the exact meaning of a perfect match is. Hearing her follow-up, our guy stammers that a perfect match is like when two Tao companions are structurally perfect for each other and live together in absolute harmony. Noting that is all. The girl glares at him suspiciously, thinking that he is completely rambling nonsense and she can barely comprehend his logic before letting it drop. She takes a deep breath and looks at the modern city, murmuring that she has officially taken her very first step into his world. Our guy smiles, noting that, yeah, it looks like it. The girl turns to him with a serious look, stating that then the very next step is to acquire that identification card. Our guy winces, noting that part is going to be highly problematic and exceptionally difficult, but telling her to not worry because he will discuss it with his connections, and advising her that in the meantime, she should watch some more modern dramas to thoroughly comprehend the reality and social parameters of this world. The girl nods, agreeing that is fine. As she watches a drama sequence, she asks curiously if this massive city showcased on the screen is called Shanghai, noting she doesn't get it. Our guy corrects her that, no, that is actually Nanjing, and explaining they don't need to focus on the city specifics. Following that, she fires off a relentless barrage of questions about modern infrastructure, public transport, and various urban elements, and our guy patiently breaks down and answers every single query. Finally, she points at a visual on the screen and asks her last question, wondering if that is a mystical fruit and noting it looks incredibly delicious. Our guy smiles, explaining that it is actually a strawberry cake, a wonderful baked dessert. Suddenly, the girl falls into a deep, absolute silence. Noting her sudden quietness, our guy asks what happened and wonders why she suddenly stopped talking. She looks away, deeply immersed in her own analysis, thinking that this man actively writes these beautiful stories because he wants to escape his own mundane reality, and reasoning that is why he became a web novelist, so that his readers can experience the grand emotions he creates. The girl applies her own profound psychological analysis to our protagonist, resolving internally that she must scale the absolute highest boundaries of power. Our guy breaks her silence, asking if she is all right and wondering why she suddenly stopped asking questions. The girl quickly masks her thoughts and replies softly that she was simply tracking the time, adding that she suddenly recalled that he is a highly busy author and noting she remembers he still needs to complete his upcoming manuscript and update his chapters. Our guy gasps, realizing she is right and noting he totally forgot. Seeing his realization, the girl practically drags him toward his desk, commanding him to go focus entirely on his work while she shall focus on hers. The girl walks over to the living room, sits elegantly on the sofa, and looks back at our guy with a profoundly gentle, beautiful smile, gesturing for him to write. Our guy sits at his laptop, completely moved, thinking that this genuinely feels like the warmth of a real home. But right as he bathes in that beautiful emotion, the girl breaks the silence. Uchi speaks softly, telling Chu Jie to look because it seems his updated manuscript cannot keep her soul anchored in this realm for very long, and announcing she must cross back over to her own universe now. She explains that once she returns, she will actively manipulate the laws of her world so that she can stay manifested beside him for a much longer period and eventually journey to you with her true physical body. Hearing her sudden departure notice, our guy panics, jumping up from his desk and shouting for her to wait and not go yet, stating that the most crucial thing that just occurred between them was something he couldn't finish. But before his words can even echo in the room, she completely vanishes into thin air. Her brand new modern clothes instantly lose their form and drop directly onto the sofa, leaving the space completely empty. Our guy stands before the empty couch, completely heartbroken, crying out that his world and his entire world is gone, and lamenting that his home is gone. He laments deeply because she had just filled his apartment with life, but now her presence has completely vanished from his reality. For now, we see that our female lead, Wu Ji, has officially crossed back over to her own universe. Left completely behind, our poor protagonist falls into a deep state of dejection. He sits alone, staring blankly at the modern clothes she left behind, lost in his thoughts. Finally, he picks up her outfits, tosses them right into the washing machine, and stands at a distance, watching the cycle spin. He sighs deeply, thinking that she is really gone, feeling so incredibly sad and noting his whole lively home feels empty again as he continues to act completely dramatic. While coping with her absence, he ponders what on earth he should do now, deciding he might as well get back to work because he desperately needs to write the upcoming chapters anyway. So he tells himself to focus on that. He opens up his laptop and starts grinding away on his manuscript. Before long, we see that he has officially uploaded the latest chapter online. However, the initial response is completely underwhelming. The readers don't seem to appreciate the new plot directions at all. At the same time, his mind constantly drifts back to Wu Chi. He recalls how she explicitly stated that she wanted absolute freedom, free from the control of any author's pen. Reflecting on this, our poor guy grows deeply anxious, wondering how he could have ever anticipated that the heroine of the very novel he is writing would literally manifest into reality. He hops online to monitor the reader community, eager to see what his audience is discussing. Looking at the comments section, he notices a massive wave of identical complaints regarding why on earth this chapter is so incredibly short, noting it ended so fast they didn't even notice, and questioning if they already finished reading this update, as everyone leaves the exact same feedback. Our guy dismisses his anxiety, thinking that it's fine, and that within a day or two, he will publish a comprehensive outline of the upcoming lore to satisfy them and put out the right content. Just then, he notices a specific comment from a female reader who is enthusiastically praising the chapter, writing that the upcoming arc is going to be absolutely spectacular. As it turns out, she had somehow predicted the plot trajectory beforehand. Seeing her accurate guess, our guy replies directly to her comment, confirming that yes, that is exactly what is going to happen. The moment he posts his confirmation, the female user quickly replies back, writing a welcome and thanking the author for the response. Our guy smiles, thinking that at least some people are actively hyping up his work. Meanwhile, the scene shifts, moving back inside our heroine's mystical cultivation universe. We see Wu Ji sitting in a state of deep, absolute meditation, channeling her spiritual energy. The moment she slowly opens her eyes, she confirms that she has successfully crossed back over and returned to her own realm. Now she needs to head straight to her grand palace hall, where her subordinates have been anxiously waiting for her return. Before long, the high-ranking members of the council chamber arrive to deliver an official report to their leader. They bow deeply, reporting to the Grand Matriarch. Based on the strategic information delivered by her scouts, Wu Ji commands firmly that it is very well, and she shall personally journey to handle those adversaries herself, ordering him to go instruct their absolute finest disciples to prepare for departure. Hearing her order, the commander complies instantly, bowing and stating that it is understood, Matriarch, and adding that he shall personally lead a vanguard of their top disciples. As they prepare, our heroine smirks internally, thinking that it is excellent and she already possesses full knowledge of exactly how this layout is going to unfold. Having acquired future knowledge from her real-world creator, she reflects that she knows for a fact that this crucial clue was uncovered by disciple Chutian, finding her future knowledge flawless. She addresses the commander openly, telling him to listen and explaining that she wishes to personally extend her gratitude to Chutian, noting his fortune has been exceptionally grand, and ordering him to ensure Chutian receives an abundant extra reward for his massive contribution to their sect. Hearing her unexpected favor toward a low-ranking disciple, the commander is thoroughly stunned, wondering how on earth the Supreme Matriarch discovered Chutian's specific findings. Meanwhile, we cut to Chutian, who is completely focused on his physical cultivation practice. Suddenly, a formal announcement echoes through the grounds, and a messenger approaches him, calling out to Chutian that the Grand Matriarch has summoned him to her presence immediately. Hearing the summons, the boy complies nervously, stating that it is all right and he shall attend at once. The scene shifts to the Grand Palace Hall. Chutian arrives before the Supreme Matriarch, dropping to his knees to offer a formal greeting, declaring his humblest respects to the Grand Matriarch as he bows deeply. However, Wu Ji doesn't say a word. She just glares down at him with an intensely sharp, analyzing gaze. Under her terrifying scrutiny, the poor boy begins to tremble in absolute fear, panicking internally and wondering why on earth the matriarch is staring at him with such a dangerous, piercing look, failing to comprehend her behavior. As he remains kneeling, the matriarch is analyzing his face, thinking to herself about why on earth his facial features look so incredibly similar to Chujie's messy face. Looking at her disciple, she realizes that Chutian's design shares an uncanny facial similarity with her real-world author. Having made the connection, she concludes that this is the narrative layout, while poor Chutian is completely lost, wondering anxiously if she is putting him through some kind of psychological test. Finally, Wuji breaks the silence, declaring openly that he has successfully uncovered a vital clue regarding their adversaries, calling it a massive contribution to their sect and asking what he desires as his official reward. Chutian politely declines, bowing and stating that he dares not accept a grand reward for merely fulfilling his duty. Wuji replies that it is very well and explains that in that case, she shall grant him absolute access to the third floor of the Sacred Sutra Library, noting he is permitted to study all their ancient techniques for a full 7 days, but reminding him that his access expires strictly after 7 days. Hearing this magnificent reward, the surrounding elders and guards gasp in absolute shock, whispering about what an incredibly grand reward it is for a low-ranking disciple, leaving everyone completely mind-blown. Chutian bows frantically, expressing his immense gratitude to the matriarch. Seeing his reaction, Wuji smirks internally, completely pleased, while Chutian is practically floating with absolute joy. Furthermore, she notes that he has been cultivating heavily and hasn't consumed a proper meal, commanding that he be provided with extra premium rations at the dining hall for the next 7 days. She then addresses the hall, reminding them to remember that in 7 days, they shall officially journey to the Serpent Island to claim the artifact. Hearing her rapid command, the elders are stunned by the sudden urgency, wondering why they are moving this fast, but the gears of her plan are already turning. Before long, 7 full days rapidly flash by. The scene shows the entire vanguard of the sect standing majestically atop their flying spiritual swords, soaring through the skies. They aren't going on a casual journey. They are flying straight into a brutal battle against the Supreme Serpent King. We see Chutian flying alongside the vanguard. Meanwhile, Wu Ji observes him from the front, reflecting that Chutian's current cultivation level is still exceptionally low, and admitting she doesn't even know if he can successfully survive this brutal clash. Feeling a wave of concern for her disciple, she leads the charge, thinking proudly to herself that she already possesses full knowledge of every single ambush and trap waiting for them, because her creator God explicitly outlined this entire battle sequence in his draft, and reasoning that as for Chutian, his cultivation will naturally progress through this trial anyway. She commands out loud to advance at maximum speed and follow her closely, and the vanguard roars back in unison that they will, addressing her as matriarch. The scene shifts instantly to the battlefield on Serpent Island. Our heroine has led her forces directly to the vilest lair of the primary antagonist. Inside the damp cavern, the main villain is currently performing a deep spiritual meditation, attempting to force a major breakthrough in his cultivation. However, before he can finalize his ascension, Wu Ji crashes through his defenses, unleashing a wave of energy that completely shatters his cultivation formation. She draws her radiant sword and launches a swift, devastating attack to seize the artifact. Even though she knows the entire sequence beforehand, thanks to her author's script, a sudden, massive spiritual hand materializes out of the darkness, lunging dangerously close to her shoulder. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to reality, where our author has just officially published this exact cliffhanger online. This unexpected twist was a deliberate storytelling choice, even though it deviated from his regular outline. The moment the chapter goes live, the readers explode in anger, flooding his section with negative comments about what a garbage episode it is, calling it a completely stupid cliffhanger, and demanding to know why. Our guy defends his choice, reasoning that if he didn't create this intense cliffhanger, he wonders how else he is supposed to set up the grand climax for the next chapter, calling it basic narrative pacing and comparing it to how the author of Jujutsu Kaisen deliberately chose to end Gojo just to progress the overarching plot, admitting that honestly he is deeply sad about Gojo's demise too, but explaining that as a writer, he understands the necessity. The scene cuts back to the cavern, where the monstrous villain reveals himself, trapping our matriarch in his gaze. As he extends his massive hand, Wu Ji drives her radiant sword straight into his palm. Pierced by her blade, the villain laughs maniacally, addressing her as Grand Matriarch Wu Ji and marveling at what an intoxicating spiritual fragrance radiates from her physical body, declaring this is going to be incredibly exquisite and telling her to just wait and see what he does to her. Hearing his vile boasting, Wu Ji counters coldly, asking if he even comprehends his own pathetic state, telling him to look at himself and demanding to know why he doesn't reveal his true disgusting form already. Hearing her mockery, the antagonist steps out of the shadows, revealing himself as the supreme poison serpent lord. He laughs mockingly at her words. Wuji snarls that despite his status as a high-level villain, he appears exceptionally weak to her eyes, telling him to listen to her and explaining she journeyed there today, knowing he has been hiding in this cavern for a full day, desperately attempting to force a breakthrough. She points out that, however, he completely failed his ascension, his defensive formation was delayed, and she has already utterly destroyed it, declaring that now it is only a matter of time before she completely subjugates him, and warning that once she shatters his remaining core, he will have no choice but to obey her commands. Hearing her deliver a flawless breakdown of his secret schedule, the poison serpent lord goes into absolute shock, panicking internally and wondering how on earth this girl possesses intimate knowledge of his exact cultivation state, questioning if she has been covertly monitoring his every move, or if this is a massive tactical trap orchestrated by her sect. He sneers out loud, addressing her as Sect Master Wu Ji, and noting she seems to possess an uncanny foresight, but asserting that in the laws of cultivation, the one who strikes first claims absolute victory. Wu Ji smiles mockingly, calling it fascinating, and noting he struck first, but declaring his efforts are entirely useless, ordering him to hand over the core immediately so she might spare it. The moment she speaks, she launches her assault, declaring that his very life now belongs to her. Caught in her trap, the villain is thrown into absolute panic, unable to find a countermeasure. In a desperate bid, he hurls a massive spiritual blade straight at her chest, but her physical form completely vanishes into thin air. The poison serpent lord gasps in bewilderment, wondering where she went, asking how she anticipated his attack, and questioning if she can literally teleport at will. Suddenly, a radiant explosion of spiritual butterflies erupts throughout the cavern, followed by a massive earth-shattering blast. The devastating explosion completely wrecks the cavern, throwing the villain into absolute chaos. Amidst the smoke, a horrific scream echoes as the villain's physical body is completely obliterated by the blast. Blood splatters across the stone floor. Surviving purely as a floating spiritual soul, the ruined villain snarls, calling it an insane self-destructive technique, but declaring that no matter, he can manipulate his core as he desperately attempts to inject his remaining soul into the giant centipede to hijack its body. Shaking off the chill, we see our matriarch unleashing a wave of spiritual fire, completely burning the centipede to absolute ashes. However, right as the creature burns, a swarm of microscopic venomous insects escapes the flames, swarming directly onto her arm. Although she manages to avoid a fatal blow, the lethal poison successfully penetrates her physical body. Realizing his time is up, the dying villain triggers a massive, final self-detonation, completely collapsing the cavern lair. Knowing the structural script beforehand, Wuji doesn't panic. She swiftly leaps away from the collapsing rocks and dives straight into the depths of the surrounding cavern pool. She holds intimate knowledge that the ultimate antidote is hidden right at the center of the deep pool, contained within a rare mystical mushroom. However, the moment she submerges into the deep water, the lethal poison takes a severe toll on her body. The phantom voice of the villain echoes in her mind, mocking that he shall return to seize her magnificent body and completely ruin her existence. Submerged in the dark waters, our heroine groans internally that the poison is spreading rapidly, cursing the situation. Her physical body completely stops cooperating due to the paralysis. She needs to swim deeper to reach the antidote, but she is completely immobilized as the poison locks her muscles. She falls into absolute panic, thinking that if only Chutian were there to assist her, it would be perfect. But right as the thought crosses her mind, her spiritual aura guides her forward, and she automatically drifts straight toward the glowing mystical mushroom. She opens her eyes to find herself right in front of the artifact. She reaches out, plucks the mushroom, and consumes it instantly to neutralize the lethal toxin, relieving herself as she thinks that, thank goodness, she survived, before swimming back to the surface. Moments later, the scene cuts to the outer shores, where Chutian is frantically calling out to the matriarch, searching for her anxiously. Meanwhile, Wuji is sitting on a rock, quietly focused on her internal meditation to completely purge the remaining poison. Chutian approaches her and bows deeply, asking if she is harmed. Wuji opens her eyes and replies calmly that she was temporarily affected by the serpent's venom, but is currently neutralizing it, telling him to not worry. Chudian sighs in relief, but then Wuji smirks and adds that furthermore, she knows for a fact that he possesses a rare snakebite fruit hidden safely inside his right pocket, which contains properties capable of curing her poison, ordering him to keep his precious fruit for yourself and asking if that is understood. Hearing her words, the boy is completely dumbfounded about how on earth the matriarch knew exactly what was inside his pocket. Our heroine just wears a knowing smile as she looks at his shocked face. Chutin stammers that it is very well and announces he shall take his leave then as he walks away. The narrator notes that for those who were eagerly expecting Chutin to dive in, save her life, and spark a massive romantic subplot between them, absolutely nothing of that sort happens because their female lead completely shut down the romance track herself, reflecting proudly that now she can stay by Chuja's side for a much longer period. The scene shifts back to the real world, where our author is looking at his monitor, facing a massive storm of angry reader comments. Our guy grumbles that this narrative outcome completely derailed from his original expectations, lamenting that his plot layout was supposed to be a standard romantic setup, but she literally refused to allow any physical contact and demanding to know how on earth he is supposed to progress the romance arc if she strictly maintains a no-touching rule. Our poor guy is practically screaming at his desk. Meanwhile, a fresh cup of coffee sits right in front of him, but the poor fellow is too stressed to even take a sip. Left completely cornered by his own character, our guy groans in frustration. Suddenly, the ambient temperature drops completely, and a freezing cold draft sweeps through the room. Our guy perks up, knowing exactly what this freezing draft signifies. She has returned. The next instant, Wuji manifests right inside his living room via spiritual teleportation. The moment she appears, she turns to him with a proud smile and declares her thanks. Our guy blinks, completely stunned, questioning if it's just a simple thank you and asking if she has any idea how badly the readers are tearing him apart in the comments right now. Right then, the window curtains begin fluttering wildly from the spiritual wind, and water starts overflowing from the kitchen sink because our messy guy left the tap running. Wuji ignores the mess and states proudly that anyway, she has successfully settled the entire serpent encounter and is entirely confident that her choices were completely correct, noting she knows exactly what he wrote in his draft as she addresses him directly. Our guy is busy drying his dishes, muttering that it is fine and whatever. He looks at her and asks if, by the way, she was heavily poisoned during the climax, wondering if she is completely healed and asking if she got hurt anywhere. Hearing his concern, she replies softly that no, it was exceptionally easy, adding that frankly, throughout her entire vanguard, there wasn't a single person besides Shutian who even bothered to check on her condition. She notes that in that regard, his character behavior is quite similar to his, explaining that even though he is the one writing his actions, that character still possesses an independent presence, and expressing her belief that his character should be granted more autonomy over his own thoughts. She shares her observations about her universe, reflecting on how her creator holds absolute control over Shutian and the entire sect, and contemplates that in reality, he is just a character inside a fictional story himself, having no real life outside this script. Our guy breaks the silence, stating that he needs to focus on writing the upcoming chapters, pointing out that the plot sequence he designed for her turned out quite spectacular and seeking her validation. He adds that he needs to continue typing, telling her to listen and explaining that if he had written that she executed the Serpent King on the spot, he would have died right there, instead of escaping into the shadows. He explains his writing choices while offering her a cup of coffee. As he hands her the beverage, she demands to know why on earth he wrote it so that he managed to escape, asking why he intentionally let him flee. Our guy responds that obviously it is because she is an overwhelmingly powerful protagonist, so the central antagonist needs to be exceptionally powerful as well, explaining that having a solid recurring villain makes the plot far more engaging. He adds that the villain fled for now but will return later, pointing out that if he died on the spot, he would just have to invent a completely new villain to replace him. Hearing his explanation, she glares at him intensely, meaning a lot more brutal battles are waiting for her in the future, as she remarks coldly that he seems exceptionally proud of his author powers, holding the destiny of an entire universe in his hands, which she calls wonderful. Our guy chuckles, explaining that yeah, he holds absolute control over her universe's destiny, but pointing out that when it comes to the anomalies happening between them in reality, he has zero control since it doesn't function on a predictable scale. For example, he notes he has absolutely no clue how she is managing to cross over from her book into his room, adding that he cannot manipulate her real actions at all, but stating he knows for a fact that their crossing paths is a matter of absolute destiny as he delivers this deep speech. He continues that he cannot alter her true destiny, nor can he control her choices. And hearing this, the girl remains completely silent. Our guy breaks the quiet, asking, by the way, about a highly specific question he has had on his mind for a very long time. The girl turns to him, telling him to ask what it is. Our guy admits internally that talking to her like this genuinely evokes the exact nervous vibe of talking to a massive crush. Outwardly, he rubs his neck, explaining that if he utilizes her sex spiritual cultivation methods to improve his own physical body, it would be absolutely amazing. And asking if, since those methods work flawlessly for her, he can try practicing them himself, wondering if he can learn her cultivation. The moment he asks this, the girl ponders that she can certainly instruct him in their arts, but notes there is a massive physiological difference between their bodies, explaining that although their human structures are fundamentally similar, his real-world energy parameters are entirely separate. She channels her aura, creating a small sphere of energy in her palms. Our guy observes it, analyzing that perhaps the spiritual energy in their realm is vastly different, maybe being significantly thinner or structurally altered, as he babbles a bunch of theories. The girl cuts him off, asking deeply that, since he has written countless lives with his pen, she wonders if he has ever contemplated the possibility that he himself might just be a character trapped inside someone else's book, asking how that would feel for him. Our guy quickly waves his hands, panicking and pleading with her to not even say things like that. He dismisses the thought and quickly shifts the topic, telling her to come on and asking why they don't get started with the cultivation practice, promising it is going to be an awesome experience. Our guy is eager to learn cultivation and witness her spiritual energy. The girl approaches him, asking where he even acquired this sudden desire. Our guy replies that it is just that his world is filled with people who fill their minds with nonsense. So he simply wants to copy her ancient scriptures for reference. Hearing his motive, she asks about her ancient scriptures in his world and inquires if he wishes to view them, expressing curiosity to see what kind of knowledge exists there. Our guy clarifies that she doesn't realize he already input all her scriptures into his system, asking if she doesn't remember all those text files, and telling her that the data is massive since it occupies multiple gigabytes of storage inside his laptop. The girl nods, telling him it is very well and ordering him to pay close attention as she explains she shall transmit the fundamental principles of their mental cultivation art into his mind, adding that over the next few days, he must gradually discipline his focus and steadily practice the energy circulation. She begins delivering a comprehensive breakdown of the art, outlining what is correct, what to avoid, and the exact steps required. Our guy quickly interrupts, telling her to wait a minute and hold on a second as he calls for a pause and asks what exactly those 12 sacred sutras are, demanding to know how on earth he is supposed to circulate his raw energy through his pathways. Hearing his basic questions, the girl grows intensely irritated, thinking that he is the literal author who wrote their entire scripture lore. So she wonders why on earth he is asking her how to circulate energy. She snaps out loud, telling him to seriously listen to her and warning him to not dare complain if she physically disciplines, strikes, or bullies him later, explaining it is because he is the sole author who constructed their entire universe, and pointing out that their entire reality rests in his hands. So she questions how he can claim he doesn't know, adding that if it were anyone else standing in her place, they would have beaten him to a pulp by now. With an absolute attitude, she delivers a sudden, stinging slap right across his face. Our poor guy rubs his cheek, thinking in bewilderment about how strange it is that her physical strike didn't actually cause him much pain, marveling that her fragrance is absolutely heavenly and calling it absolute bliss. Even after getting slapped, the absolute lonely guy is completely focused on her scent. Meanwhile, the girl shifts her gaze across the room, and suddenly her eyes lock onto the laundry rack. She freezes in absolute pure shock. Hanging directly on the rack are her freshly washed garments, including her highly private, intimate modern undergarments. We see our heroine flushing a deep, fiery red, stammering in her mind about how this can be, recalling that when she crossed over to her world, she left her private garments right there in his room, wondering if he looked at them and questioning if he did something indecent with them. She reflects that she has absolutely no clue what he did and cannot even bring herself to ask him directly, but notes that, however, he was the one who went out of his way to wash them for her, wondering how she can physically punish a man who acts this profoundly kind toward her. She turns to him, deeply embarrassed, and mutters softly that he has absolutely no need to wash those specific garments for her in the future, asking if that is understood, and announcing she shall handle her own laundry from now on. Our guy looks at her pouting face, thoroughly confused, wondering what on earth is wrong with her suddenly, failing to comprehend her embarrassment, while his mind wanders into bizarre, random lines of thought. Suddenly, the girl's embarrassment turns into absolute defensive anger. She glares at him with pure rage, and our guy panics internally, worrying that she is coming at him with that terrifying look again and wondering what he should do. But right as he braces for impact, she looks at him with a surprisingly gentle, quiet gaze. Our guy stands perfectly still. Meanwhile, the girl is reflecting on their dynamic, thinking that a solitary young man and a beautiful maiden sharing a closed living space makes her wonder if this arrangement is truly proper. But deciding it is perfectly fine, and resolving she shall not overthink these mundane matters, since everything is completely fine. She continuously reassures herself in her mind that everything is fine and everything is safe. She turns to him and adds to, not worry, explaining that from now on, whenever she prepares to cross back over to her universe, she shall simply change back into her traditional robes beforehand. Noting her mind was simply scattered and confused this time. Hearing her reassurance, our guy nods, agreeing that is fine and sounds good. The girl adds that furthermore, they must strictly practice financial economy and save their money. Our guy counters quickly, pleading with her to not fill her mind with those financial anxieties and telling her to not stress herself about money at all. Our guy reassures her, adding that as for his novel career, the upcoming chapters are going to be officially published online very soon, noting he possesses some solid personal savings and fresh royalties will be rolling in shortly. So the reality is she has absolutely zero need to worry about expenses because he can easily afford to maintain their lifestyle. Hearing his financial assurance, the girl looks at him skeptically, muttering that she strongly suspects his real motive is simply a desire to see her dressed up in those modern outfits, and admitting she has absolutely no clue what hidden schemes he is plotting with those clothes. The moment the words leave her mouth, our guy explodes in protest, screaming what on earth he would even scheme with a pile of clothes, asking how she can say something like that, demanding to know what she is even implying, and questioning if she honestly believes he is a certified pervert. Our guy screams at the top of his lungs. Outside the window, a pair of birds flutter away from his loud shouting. Internally, our guy grumbles that her mind is filled with the most bizarre, distorted ideas about him. At the same time, the girl reflects on his reaction, realizing that his words actually make complete sense, concluding she shouldn't unleash her temper so easily, and admitting her anger threshold is way too volatile. Meanwhile, our guy relaxes, thinking thank goodness that at least she returned to reality safely, and wondering if she will have to journey for an extended business trip within her novel lore later. He wears a soft smile and gazes at her affectionately. Noting his look, the girl snaps, demanding to know why on earth he is smiling like an idiot. Our guy charms her away, unable to find an answer, and quickly shuts his mouth. As time progresses, her clothes on the rack dry completely. The girl changes back into her proper attire and sits down across from him. Having settled down, she delivers a sarcastic jab, remarking that a man like him has officially successfully transformed into the primary villain of his own book, calling him a complete antagonist. Our guy retorts proudly that he is the absolute main character of his own life journey. He adds that a man is always the undisputed protagonist in the face of an adversary. The girl rolls her eyes, noting it genuinely feels like his disciple Chutian is a far superior entity compared to him, explaining that he is performing exceptionally well in the plot, far better than his creator. Hearing her praise for Chutian, our guy panics instantly, warning her that is absolutely not the case, telling her to listen and explaining that Chutian holds absolutely zero romantic feelings toward her in the current script, so advising her to not overthink it and pleading with her to please not go back to her world and physically discipline or thrash the poor boy. Our guy is genuinely terrified for Chutian because the boy is completely innocent and clueless about the situation, but the girl just smirks, stating that yes, she knows. Internally, she plots that he completely admitted it, reasoning that if she physically disciplines Chutian later, the author won't be able to complain. Following that, she states out loud that furthermore, she requires those socks they observed at the market. Hearing her request, our guy smiles internally, thinking that it is awesome and reflecting that at least when she wears them next time, she is going to look exceptionally spectacular, finding her honestly so incredibly cute. Outwardly, the girl commands him to fold his legs and sit in a proper cross-legged posture immediately, explaining she shall now demonstrate the energy pathways to him. She prepares to outline the cultivation vessels, adding that he must maintain this continuous posture for a full 5 days, and warning that if he fails to maintain focus, she shall unleash a brutal physical punishment upon him, asking if that is understood. Hearing the strict condition, our poor guy treasures his safety and trembles in fear, thinking that he is completely doomed and wondering how on earth he is supposed to sit in this painful posture for hours. Just then, the girl leans in exceptionally close to his face to adjust his posture, remarking that by this point, his spiritual focus should have naturally locked in. Being in such extreme physical proximity to her, our poor guy freezes, staring directly into her beautiful eyes as his heart races. But the next instant, a sharp slap lands right across his face. The girl barks, demanding to know what on earth his thoughts are drifting toward and ordering him to tell her right then. Our guy rubs his face and groans, stating that his cultivation practice session is officially completed and suggesting now it is his turn to observe her energy pathways, inviting her to come on so they can get started. However, she flatly rejects the idea, snapping that it is absolutely not happening and calling it entirely unnecessary. They begin bickering back and forth like a chaotic duo, but suddenly she firmly grabs his wrist, checking his pulse. Our guy blinks, wondering what is going on. The girl sighs heavily and breaks down his diagnosis, explaining that his physical conditioning is completely garbage. His internal pathways are exceptionally weak, and his blood circulation is thoroughly sluggish, listing every single physical flaw imaginable about his body. Our guy grumbles internally that it's not like he is a certified gym trainer or a fitness freak, pointing out he is a web novelist, an online writer who sits at a desk all day, and wishing she would cut him some slack. The girl concludes out loud that his physical constitution is completely unfit for spiritual cultivation, since his core is entirely hollow and empty. The moment she utters the word empty, our poor guy winces, noting that phrase directly pierced through his heart, questioning who even delivers a harsh critique like that, and pleading with her to please stop utilizing that word empty because it sounds completely offensive. Meanwhile, the girl just glares at him. Our guy sighs, agreeing that it is fine, and swearing that he shall begin practicing daily physical exercise starting that very day. Our guy makes a grand solemn vow, but in reality, nothing substantial happens because he gets completely exhausted within minutes of exercising. Eventually, our guy gives up and orders a large spread of takeout dishes online. The moment the food arrives, the girl sets it on the table and lectures him firmly, explaining that he must consume an abundant amount of nutrients to improve his physical body and warning him that he is strictly forbidden from skipping meals. Furthermore, she states that he must never consume food between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Otherwise, he will completely ruin his digestive system and damage his liver, adding that he must stop pulling all-nighters. Our guy retorts that high-level cultivators like her don't even require food. The girl counters that the laws of a high-level cultivator and a mortal human are entirely separate, noting there is an absolute boundary between them, and reminding him that he is merely a mundane mortal, asking if he understands. Hearing her firm logic, our guy sighs, agreeing that, yeah, he gets it, and asking if following that hierarchy, he should officially address her as his master. The moment he suggests the title, the girl smirks and counters by asking if following that exact hierarchy, she should officially address him as her creator god. Our guy smiles, remarking that both of those titles sound absolutely fantastic, and suggesting they address each other, using those names from now on. The next instant, another sharp slap lands right across his face. Nursing his cheek, our guy listens as she lectures him to listen to her, explaining that consuming greasy takeout food from external vendors is exceptionally expensive and thoroughly unhealthy, and asking why he doesn't simply prepare his own meals inside the kitchen, which she notes would be far superior. Besides, she questions what the point of living in this world is if he just consumes junk, and reminds him that he isn't even rich, so he should strictly practice economy. As she delivers another financial reality check, our guy grumbles internally about another direct hit. Outwardly, he defends himself, explaining that there is a major structural reason for this because they modern humans are exceptionally lazy, noting that a lot of creators in this world are completely lazy by nature, just like him. The girl blinks, wondering if that is really so. Our guy asks curiously, wanting to know if she actually knows how to cook, pointing out that throughout her entire novel journey, he never explicitly wrote a single scene showcasing her culinary skills. The girl huffs that an author has absolutely no need to write down every single microscopic detail since he can easily infer it through narrative imagination. Our guy smiles, agreeing that she's right about that, and explaining that in fact, within the structural settings he established for his apartment layout, it explicitly states that she has full access to the living room and the kitchen area, so logically it implies she possesses cooking skills. Hearing his narrative deduction, the girl snaps, demanding to know why on earth she should ever cook a meal for you, noting it is simple logic and asking why an independent entity would ever pamper a mortal like him, telling him to not be delusional. Our guy retorts that it is because he is the one footing the rent for this apartment. Hearing the ultimate economic argument, the girl falls silent, turns around, and commands him to go acquire the necessary cooking supplies immediately, ordering him to bring oil, salt, rice, and whatever else is required. Our guy smiles, telling her that there is absolutely no need to go around gathering firewood or anything like that, because this apartment is equipped with a modern LPG gas canister, explaining they simply need to swing by the supermarket to purchase the ingredients and inviting her to let them go get those socks for her too, promising to buy a whole bundle for her. The moment the words leave his mouth, they find themselves inside the local supermarket, browsing through the snack aisle. The girl looks at the shelves and asks curiously if he prefers the white packaged ones. Our guy nods, telling her, yeah, sure, to toss it into the cart. Having gathered their supplies, the girl observes the total bill, reflecting silently that she desperately needs to generate a massive amount of income because the cost of living in this world is exceptionally expensive. Our guy spots a display and asks her to check that out, wondering if she wants to purchase another outfit as he points toward a clothing display showcasing a set of identical matching couples' outfits. The girl looks at the matching garments and scoffs, demanding to know what on earth the structural purpose of wearing identical clothes is. Our guy attempts to manipulate her with custom logic, arguing that within her cultivation universe, her entire vanguard wears identical set uniforms, noting it is the exact same simple logic and explaining that people who share the same living space should naturally wear matching attire to show alignment. He intentionally attempts to trick her into buying a couple's outfit through pure manipulation. The girl stares at him, reading his expression perfectly, thinking that he is acting exactly like a cunning, sly fox. However, she gives in, muttering that it is fine and whatever. Our guy rejoices, calling out to the cashier to pack those two matching sets as well. Our guy successfully acquires 2 pairs of couples' outfits, praising her that her fashion eye is exceptionally sharp and calling it truly magnificent, while asking what the total damage is. The girl observes the transaction, thoroughly stunned, thinking that she knows for a fact that this is a couple's outfit, but noting he clearly has absolutely no clue that she doesn't even care about the couple's definition. Meanwhile, our guy is secretly laughing inside because his clever trick worked flawlessly, feeling thoroughly pleased with himself. But the girl remains focused on the finances, thinking she must strictly focus on generating income because things are way too expensive. The payment transaction goes through successfully. The scene shifts as they arrive back at the apartment carrying their heavy groceries. Our poor author is completely exhausted, dragging his feet as he struggles to carry the heavy bags. Seeing his weak display, the girl casually lifts the heavy bags with a single hand and scoffs at his pathetic display, ordering him to move quickly and lift the supplies since those objects are exceptionally light. Our guy gasps, pointing out that of course she thinks it's light, but telling her to listen because he is not physically weak, since it's just that her cultivation strength makes her overwhelmingly strong. As he drops the remaining bags onto her arms, the girl huffs, telling him to then focus on becoming physically strong, and pausing to wonder if they cannot simply generate income by engaging in physical battles or taking on bounties, asking if those activities strictly require an identification card as well. Her mind cooks up a highly practical cultivation solution. Our guy explains that she can certainly earn a massive income as a top-tier sword cultivator, but confirms that yes, of course, those official roles strictly require a legal ID card. Furthermore, he warns that unless a massive border war erupts, it is completely foolish to engage in unsanctioned street fights, calling it an absolute act of idiocy that would cause unnecessary trouble and advising her to let them avoid that. The girl nods, agreeing that is very well, and announcing that in that case, she shall head into the kitchen to handle her duties. Carrying all the grocery bags, she marches straight into the kitchen to prepare the meal, adding that they should see how this unfolds. Our guy watches her go, reflecting warmly that he originally planned to take absolute care of her, but in reality, she is the one constantly taking care of him. Our guy walks into the kitchen to check on her, only to find her standing completely frozen. It turns out the modern gas stove isn't functioning because the canister is empty. The girl is currently washing her hands at the sink. The moment she rinses her hands, a sharp, unpleasant odor from the neglected kitchen wafts through the air, causing her to cough violently. She snaps, demanding to know if this is supposed to be a kitchen, asking how on earth a living space can be this filthy, and inquiring when was the last time this room was actually operated as she demands an explanation from him. Our guy scratches his neck guiltily, stammers that it has been about 6 months since he last cooked anything there, and the moment the words leave his mouth, he wisely retreats from the kitchen. The girl blinks, noticing his sudden escape, and wears a sharp smile. However, utilizing her supernatural cultivation arts, she unleashes a wave of spiritual energy that completely purges the entire kitchen. She grumbles about what an absolute idiot of a creator god he is. Seriously, within 2 literal seconds, the entire kitchen is transformed into a sparkling, pristine environment. Meanwhile, our guy is out in the living room, frantically making a phone call to order a replacement LPG gas canister from the black market. As he finishes the call, the girl steps out of the kitchen and asks curiously who exactly he was communicating with just then. Our guy replies that he was just ordering an LPG gas refill from a vendor for 3,000 yuan on the black market, telling her to not worry about it. The girl narrows her eyes, noting that is very well, but asking why on earth he didn't explain the entire situation to her beforehand, wondering if it was because she was staring at him intensely. Our guy stammers that it is not, explaining it's just because he had already finalized the call, and quickly stepping outside to clear the air. The girl nods, noting she sees. Our guy steps out onto his balcony, checking his phone, and groans, wondering why on earth those people are constantly waging flame wars in his community. It turns out his subscribers are intensely bickering over the plot details, exactly like how audiences debate online. Just then, Wuji approaches him and asks what the issue is. Our guy sighs, explaining it is nothing, and describing it as just a bunch of toxic internet users tearing each other apart in the comments. Hearing his explanation, the girl reflects that she is beginning to comprehend, noting the humans in his world possess an exceptionally unique nature since they constantly engage in endless arguments. She guesses he probably engages in those bickerings as well, while asking about the other authors and wondering if they all possess a chaotic destiny similar to his. Our guy replies that he has no clue about the other writers, but confirms that yes, those readers love to argue, explaining they bicker constantly because every single individual possesses their own unique opinion and independent mindset. He points out that everyone has their own ideas, so it is exceptionally difficult to keep an entire audience perfectly aligned on the same page. Our guide delivers this writing truth. The girl nods, agreeing that, yes, that makes complete sense. Our guy contemplates that it's highly unusual because their circle is quite small and he has already published the chapter. Yet the chaos continues. He feels completely lost because the readers are launching massive arguments in his section, sighing and wondering seriously what is going on there. He successfully pushed out the chapter, but the girl is still safely manifested beside him. The girl looks at him and asks curiously if this recent update turned out to be a positive development for his career or a negative one. As she asks her question, she reflects silently, wondering if his career struggles are causing him immense stress. Our guy responds that no, it's actually a highly positive development for him, admitting he was deeply terrified that if his core original readers stopped reading his book, it would be an absolute disaster since finding a brand new audience is incredibly difficult. But he notes it's fine, and new readers will eventually find his work, suddenly remembering that speaking of reading, her history books arrived a couple of days ago. The moment he mentions the books, the girl is thoroughly surprised that they arrived that fast. Our guy smiles, assuring her that, of course, modern delivery is exceptionally swift, and telling her that here she should thoroughly study them as he hands her a stack of 3 to 4 comprehensive history books he had ordered. The girl flips through the pages of the history books, processes the timeline, and scoffs in absolute disbelief at a mere 5,000 years of recorded history, calling his civilization's entire timeline exceptionally young and brief. Hearing her historical critique, our guy retorts that, from a cultivation parameter, she is basically an ancient lady, but tells her that jokes aside, The reality is she shouldn't take their timeline scale too seriously. He explains that the authors constantly write all sorts of absurd, exaggerated parameters in books, noting that, to be completely honest, their actual civilization spans exactly this timeline, but is continuously evolving, and explaining she needs to understand that across their history, one empire ruled, then another took over. The girl absorbs his words and nods, noting that is very well. Following that, she sits down on the sofa and begins deeply immersing herself in the history books. Meanwhile, our guy sits nearby, completely captivated, staring at her beautiful face as she reads. He contemplates whether he should write a scene in the next chapter, describing her reading a history book, considering it a fantastic meta element, and deciding he definitely needs to write that. Just then, a loud knock echoes at the front door, indicating the gas delivery man has arrived with the canister. Our guy calls out that it is all right and he is coming, as he quickly heads down to collect the cylinder. The scene cuts to a short while later. Our protagonist is sitting at his desk, furiously typing away on his laptop while sipping a fresh cup of coffee. His mind is completely jammed, experiencing massive writer's block as he pushes his brain to the absolute limit. Meanwhile, across the room, our heroine, Vaji, looks up from her book, observing his intense struggle. She reflects silently that he is pouring his entire soul into his work, while she is just sitting there, contributing absolutely nothing to their household. A heavy wave of guilt washes over her as she ponders anxiously whether she should go prepare a fresh cup of coffee for him, considering a warm cup of coffee, but wondering if she does that, if it makes her look like his personal maid, or if it positions her as a supportive female companion, experiencing a massive internal dilemma over her role. Right at that moment, our guy finishes typing the final sentence, lets out a massive sneeze and shivers, remarking that it suddenly got freezing cold in there. The clock on his laptop screen flashes 5:30 a.m., marking another grueling all-nighter completed. He has successfully finalized the chapter and officially launched it online. In this update, he introduces a brand new, compelling character arc, plotting that within a short narrative period, this character will achieve massive popularity among the readers, elevating the story's overall stakes. The moment the chapter goes live, the comment section explodes into its usual chaos, with some readers launching massive hate comments while others shower him with praise, every single user reacting based on their own personal opinions. Our guy monitors the feedback and smiles, thinking that it is not bad, reflecting that honestly, this reception far exceeds his original expectations, and calling it a solid win. Suddenly, a rich, delicious aroma wafts from the kitchen. Our guy blinks, stands up, and walks into the kitchen to investigate. The moment he steps inside, his jaw completely drops in absolute shock. The cooking utensils, the ladle and the spatula, are literally hovering in midair, automatically stirring the pots all by themselves. Meanwhile, the girl is sitting comfortably at the kitchen counter, casually reading her history book while manipulating the utensils with her mind. Our guy rubs his eyes, completely mind-blown, stammering that watching her manage the household like this genuinely gives him the absolute vibe of looking at a supportive wife, or honestly, looking at his own mom. Noticing his presence, the girl shifts her gaze from her book and asks sharply what the matter is with him, wondering if he has honestly never seen a maiden prepare a meal before. Our guy stammers that part is fine, but points out he has definitely never seen a meal prepare itself automatically in midair, demanding to know why on earth she isn't utilizing her own hands to cook. The girl scoffs that the most practical solution is to utilize her raw spiritual energy to operate the utensils, explaining it saves an immense amount of time and eliminates all physical effort, calling it simple efficiency. Our guy sits down and takes a bite of the food, and his eyes instantly widen as he exclaims that it is incredibly delicious, beginning to devour the meal rapidly. As they eat, the girl suggests if she cannot simply establish herself as a professional chef to generate a massive income in this world. The moment she mentions the career idea, our guy grows serious, sets his chopsticks down, and addresses her earnestly, telling her to look and let him tell her the reality, explaining he has thoroughly discussed this with his legal connections, and noting the consensus is that obtaining an identification card for her is a massive, near impossible issue unless she possesses a verifiable societal background. For example, he adds that if she possessed a documented family lineage or some proof indicating she has been a long-term resident of this city, it would be a completely different story. The girl sighs, suggesting that perhaps if a powerful member from her universe, someone from her own sect, manage to cross over and officially testify that they are her loyal disciple, it would resolve the issue. But then again, she wonders why anyone in this world would ever believe such a claim. Pointing out a random individual would suddenly materialize out of nowhere with zero documentation, which she calls highly suspicious. She shakes her head, dismissing the idea, telling herself never mind, to forget about it and to let it drop, reasoning that if it cannot be achieved, it's fine, and announcing she shall simply continue to reside there and foot her portion of the apartment rent. However, she states there is no need for anxiety because once she fully comprehends the parameters of this universe, she shall simply return to her world permanently. Hearing her plans to leave, our poor guy feels a deep pang of sadness in his heart. Outwardly, he clears his throat, agreeing that is fine, asking, by the way, how far along she is with those history books, and telling her to let him know if she encounters any comprehension issues. The girl huffs proudly that she has encountered absolutely zero issues thus far, because she is exceptionally intelligent, asking if he understands. Our guy smiles, agreeing that, yeah, right, of course. He adds that besides, their world is quite unique, guessing she found many structural similarities in their historical trajectories. Our guy continues that anyway, while some historical accounts in these books line up with their novel parameters, a significant portion of ancient texts was completely ruined and lost across the eras, advising her to not worry about it. The girl sighs, agreeing that yes, it is deeply tragic that so much ancient knowledge was entirely ruined, but noting there are still fascinating elements preserved there. She utilizes a microscopic fraction of her aura to analyze the pages, but then she pauses and murmurs that she cannot say for certain, wondering if this could be a sensory illusion and questioning if her internal energy parameters do not appear significantly thinner and weaker compared to before. Our guy monitors her condition, recalling that when she first manifested, her spiritual aura felt far more robust and concentrated compared to her current state. He analyzes the situation, wondering if her energy is draining simply because she crossed over from her book boundaries into the real world,